Our speaker today is Chad McGimpsey. Chad has a background in technology, done a number of different jobs. Sure you'll tell us a bit more about that in a minute, but project manager, CTO, a lot of exciting things. And he's going to talk to us today about life design, following your passion, which seems like an excellent topic for our group and for people in general. So very pleased to have you here today, Chad.
Thank you. And I figured I could just kind of go through my story a little bit, talk to you about my journey, and then can open it up for discussion and, see if anyone has any questions, or I'd really be interested in hearing other people's journeys and, any changes going on right now in people's lives, and if they're doing any kind of life design as well. So basically, my story is that I love going for adventures in the wilderness. And so hiking and backpacking, overlanding, sailing, I just love getting out into the wilderness and being in nature. And I also love the wilderness of like starting a new company and building a new product. When you're an entrepreneur, as many of you are, you get out there and you're building something, and it's almost like being in the wilderness because you don't know which way to go next. There's a scary cliff over here. There's a bear over here. Is that the right path, or should I be taking the left? And so I love that kind of feeling and being in that uncertain place and trying to learn and grow and all of that. And so I call myself a field guide for entrepreneurs. And basically, I help early stage founders kind of navigate and brave the wilderness of starting a new company. And so right now I'm a mentor in residence for the Day One Accelerator. I do consulting, and I'm actually looking at taking this to the next level. So business partner and I are looking at creating what we're calling an innovation academy. And so basically it's like an accelerator incubator program, except it's not time bound. It's not a particular length of time. You can join for 3 months or 3 years, kind of however long it takes you to fly from the nest. We really believe that there's a way that you can approach being an entrepreneur and creating a company that will give you a much better chance of success than if you're doing it on your own. So that's kind of where I'm headed next. But going back in time, I started my career off. I went to college for computer science and engineering. I have an engineering degree. Came out of that and went into GE's IT leadership program. So basically, they're teaching you how to be a good leader in their view. And you're doing IT project management stuff. And so I was at GE for about 5 years, had teams working for me in, overseas in India, Mexico, China, and really got into working with, functional teams. And I got really interested in, okay, there's this intersection between tech and people, and technology is great, but if you're just doing tech for tech's sake, then it doesn't really help anyone, right? And so that's when I really got interested in solving processes and like looking at processes, making them better, solving problems, and really getting in with people and kind of feeling that emotional tie, right? Of they're doing something in their job. They don't particularly, there's a challenge there, right? And it's frustrating. And so one of my key strengths when I was there was to be able to work with people and really kind of figure out what are those challenges and what's really going on here, and how can we solve that in the best way. So then I decided to quit my job, move to Boulder, and start a company. Had no idea what I was going to start, but just decided that I didn't have, a significant other. I didn't have a house. I didn't have kids. So if I was going to do it, the time was then. So moved to Boulder and started a greeting card company. And so Card Gnome is still alive today. You can buy a card online. We'll mail it for you. We work with about 350 independent artists and have about 10,000 designs on the site. But what I quickly learned is that I'm not super passionate about greeting cards. And so I built this company. I'm working 80 to 100 hours a week, crazy hours trying to get this thing off the ground. But at some point we reached a threshold where it was, this thing still has legs. It's still possible to keep it going, but none of us are really passionate about it. None of us can get past that hump of, okay, it's, it needs a lot more work to get it to a multi-million-dollar company. And we just don't have that drive and that ambition to keep it going and to kind of keep putting ourselves aside in order to do that. So I was totally burnt out. I basically spent like the next 3 months just on the couch, not doing anything, because I could not concentrate whatsoever. And I started doing some random stuff. So I started doing some consulting, and I was still working on Cardinome. But then I also started working on myself. And so this is where I kind of took a detour from tech. I had been IT project manager. I had, with Cardinome, I was the lead developer. So I was coding Ruby on Rails, doing all the development. And I started getting into self-work, and I joined a men's tribe. And basically through this group, we were really looking at how do you up-level yourself? And how do you take the challenges that you're facing right now and get support from the other men in the group, but then also rise to that occasion, right? And kind of be your best self. And I really started looking at my passions and my values, and realized that I've always loved being outside, outdoors, and that I really connect with nature. I really connect with being outside, going for adventures. And so I got into this kind of confusing place because I also love technology, right? I still read Wired, I still read Ars Technica, I'm still coding, I'm still going to Ruby on Rails meetups. And, how do you connect those two together? And for a long time, I really couldn't, but I went down this road of looking at my passions, looking at those values. And, for a little while, I decided, well, I was gonna, quit tech and just be a adventure guide, right? Take people out into the wilderness and go camping, climb mountains, that sort of thing. But I realized that at the end of the day, I needed that challenge of tech, of building new things, and I also wanted to have that nature piece of it and have that adventure piece. And so, that was a difficult period for me of like finding my passion, because at the beginning, I was really sitting there and going, well, what do I even like to do? Right? I'm doing my day job. I've liked technology, but is that really my passion? That was really hard for me to kind of figure out. And then the next part was that accepting of, what were my passions, and that it's okay to kind of go down that road, right? Because like many other people, you get all this external pressure to have a certain job, to go in a certain direction. You're maybe already in a job, and to switch completely or to kind of navigate to somewhere else, there's a lot of external pressure to not do that, and to kind of keep on that road. And there's a lot of internal pressure to do that as well. And so a lot of what I ended up doing was just kind of going through and checking in with myself and accepting, okay, I love these things. How do I make a career out of all these disparate things that I love to do? And the next thing was really about life design. It was getting to the next stage of not only do I love these things, but how do I design my life in a way where I can live that every day? And I can kind of design my life to a point where I'm not beholden to anyone else. I'm the architect of my life and where I want it to go. And so one of the first things that my wife and I did is we realized that we love being in the mountains. I've always loved being in the mountains. That's why I moved out to Boulder. My wife is from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And so we were living in Boulder in town, and we decided we wanted to sell that house and move up to the mountains. We created a list of all the things that we needed in this house, and we did not deviate from that. It took us 1.5 years to find our house, but we moved up here about 1.5 years ago, and we absolutely love it. Like, we love where we live. I go for 2 hikes a day in the national forest. We wake up, we look outside, and every day is just kind of this amazing feeling of being where we want to be. And then the next thing we looked at is like, okay, so what's our next career move? We're starting to make some waves. We're starting to look at what we want to do, but what really is it that we want to get to? And this is where I really took a lot of cues from people in my network and my friends. I was doing some consulting, some CTO consulting, basically fractional CTO work. I was working with some accelerators and incubator programs. And a couple of people just kind of said, you know what, you're really good at guiding people through the challenging steps at the beginning of starting a company. You're really good at finding that product market fit, being really empathetic with people, but then also being challenging to them, and not letting them just kind of go along this road that's not going to lead anywhere, but really helping them get to a place where they can be successful. And so I listened to them and said, okay, well, what if I just became a consultant helping early stage startups? And that's when this kind of field guide for entrepreneurs came up. And it really marries in, my love of adventure and wilderness with guiding and helping people. But there was something missing, and that was the nature part. So I'm going for 2 hikes a day in the national forest, and I'm getting out there, but I'm looking at climate change. I'm looking at, all these things happening to our world, and I'm thinking, I have to do something about this. It is core to me to really be thinking about the world and how I can leave this place better than when I came in. And so that's when I decided I'm going to shift my focus to working with early stage climate tech founders. And I really started going down that rabbit hole of learning as much as I can about climate change, really trying to get into climate tech communities, and really shifting my focus there. Once I started doing that, that's when my co-founder and I were talking and said, we've been a part of a couple of these incubator and accelerator programs. What's stopping us from creating our own? And it's something that I've been thinking about for years, but I needed, that kick. I needed someone else to do it with me. And I also needed something to tie it more into my passions and values, which ends up being climate change. And so that's why we're focusing on impact entrepreneurs. And so people who want to create B Corps, want to, have some kind of impact other than just making money. At the same time, I don't want to be a nonprofit. I don't want to, I think that there's a way that we can be a for-profit company, that other companies can be for-profit and make a positive impact on this world. I really believe that there's a way to do both. And that there's a definite need for nonprofits, but that in the area that we're looking in, there's a way to do both, right? And so that's kind of how I got to where I am now. And in the past number of years, what I've really learned is I need to trust my gut. Every time I come to a decision, every time I come to, that's really scary, I don't know if I should really be doing that, like really leaning in and listening to my gut has always led me in the right way. And whenever I've not trusted my gut and gone against it, I've always end up regretting that in the future, every single time. And again, it's really been about listening to my heart. And I'm not at a place where I'm 100% happy at the moment of this is my life, I'm jazzed every morning, blah blah blah, right? But I'm way closer to that than I have been in the past. And so I think this path has been really difficult for me, but it's also been super valuable. And I just really want to share it with other people and help other people kind of have the same journey and get towards the same trajectory of really loving what they're doing every day. So that's basically my story. And yeah, I'd love to hear from other people, hear any questions people have about my journey.
Cool question. You mentioned finding a men's support group tribe in the beginning. How did you find that?
So kind of surreptitiously. So my ex-girlfriend and I were doing some couples therapy, and I wasn't very happy in that relationship. And I knew it, but I wasn't listening to my gut. I wasn't getting out of it. I was just kind of like doing status quo, right? And that therapist told me, she brought me aside. I was like, look, you don't seem very happy. Would you be willing to talk to someone else and just do some personal therapy one-on-one? The guy that I got recommended to was the one that led those tribes. And most of his work was in groups. But I was doing a little bit of one-on-one with him. And then he's the one that said, you know what? I think what you need is not necessarily one-on-one therapy. You just need some guidance. And so joining this group might be a really valuable experience. And honestly, it's one of the best things I've ever done in my life. And I think, everyone should do something like this because it's changed my outlook on the world, and it's changed how I view the world and how I interact with people.
That's awesome.
What's a B Corp?
So B Corp is a corporation that, it's not, your metrics for success aren't just making money, it's also having some kind of impact. And so it could be CO2 sequestration. So, your goals are, we're going to make $1 million in revenue this year, and we're going to remove X number of tons of CO2 from the atmosphere. And you're beholden to those goals just as you would revenue targets.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking of large B Corps in Denver, Guild Education, I think, is a B Corp. That's one that comes to mind. I think there's another couple big ones that have sprung up recently. Trying to see if anyone else know of any big B Corps that
I heard of Uplight
know.
is a Denver one that's a B Corp. That's the first time I heard of it.
And there's a number of them popping up. And there's also a number of companies that are kind of going that direction. And so I believe Patagonia has become B Corp certified. There's kind of two different versions. There's like, you can actually set up your corporate structure to be different. So it's different than a C Corp, very, very similar. And then the other one is you're a C Corp, but then you just get certified under certain rules, basically.
So you approached all of this running your own company. Do you have any advice for people who aren't really ready for that and are pretty fine being a cog in the bigger machine, but still want to have a better life?
Yeah, definitely. I think, checking in with yourself of what do you want from that relationship? Like, what do you want from your employer? Is it, there's some people that are much more motivated by, money and the status. There's some people that, I'm okay with X amount of money, but what I really need is to have that positive relationship with my employer where I feel valued. And so kind of checking in on that. And then also if you have any specific goals or passions in your life. So let's say you love animals, right? It's possible to work in tech for a company who helps animals. And that might be more fulfilling than working for, Google or a startup or, some random other company. And I think the thing is it's a continuous journey. And so you have to constantly be checking in with yourself and saying, is this what I want? Is this right for me? And it could be that, you find a company that aligns with your values and with your passions, and then you're just ecstatic to go to work every day for that company. Does that help?
Yeah, thanks.
Another question.
Sure.
About time. Guess my friend is starting her own company, and she is, I guess, just giving every second of her life to it, which seems required, but also is like sort of a compulsion because it's anxiety producing. How do you know if you're giving too much time to, I guess, your goals or dreams spirit wise?
That's a good question. I think that's probably highly personal. I know I was pretty much okay giving 80 to 100 hours to my first company a week at the beginning, and for a while too. I was really excited about it. I was, I would think about things, I might be sitting there watching TV and I would think about something and I would just go grab the computer and start coding, right? And so at that point, I think it was it was okay for me. But now I've been working from home for basically 11 years. I mean, my company that I started, we did have an office, but I couldn't go in more than 2 days a week because I had a code. Plus, I was also in leadership, and so going into the office, there was just too many distractions, and I couldn't get any coding done. And so one of the things that I've learned is how to really set myself up for work-life balance at home, which is something that a lot of people right now with COVID are struggling with. And I struggled with that at the beginning a lot. And it's taken a number of years to kind of get to the point where I can leave at 5 or 6 o'clock and not look at anything work-related. And it's, to me, it's a choice. It's, I could choose to go and work some more, or I could choose to not work. And sometimes I sit there and I'm itchy and I'm like, I'm bored right now. I need to do something. And then it's a choice. Do I go and work some more or do I not? But I think it's, that's a very difficult thing. And I don't necessarily agree that you have to be, if you have a startup, you have to be working, these crazy hours. I think you have to put a lot of time and effort in. But at the same time, there's a lot of evidence that working 80 to 100-hour weeks is not actually more productive than working 40 hours. And so you need to have that balance. And I've actually heard a number of VCs tell people, hey, you've been working like crazy, like go take a vacation, go take a break, or go home. Like I've literally heard someone get on the phone and be like, you need to go home and go to your family right now, stop working for the weekend. Because they're worried about burnout as well. And if you get to a point where you've just burnt yourself out, like it is so hard to recover from that. And at the end of the day, if it takes 6 months longer for the company to get somewhere, or 3 months longer, but you don't have burnt out employees, that's actually a better outcome than having a bunch of people who are burnt out and then the company just takes a nosedive.
Makes me think about my career a bit. I'm just thinking about life design, and I feel like somewhere you've got to try different things in order to, get some samples to then apply that intentionality to. So, wonder, question for the group: do you feel like you're in a phase of still kind of collecting experiences to then be like, okay, those are the ones I don't like, and these ones I do? Or do you feel like you're at a point where like, okay, great, I could use some more intentionality and do some life design?
Hey, is B Corp an actual designation, or is it a hack that's written into the corporate charter at the time you form the organization? How is it implemented?
I believe if you go the B Corp route where it's its own entity, it is a different type of legal designation.
Okay.
So to answer Gabe's question, I guess I think it ebbs and flows a lot. So I guess I think I'm in the well, I guess about 8 years ago, I did my own sort of mini evaluating life and what I want. And then I found a good place that's been working for a while. And so now maybe I'm doing that again. Like, okay, like let's perfect that, or let's see what's still missing, and maybe gather some more versus also reflect. So both.
I think that's a good point where, I tell my clients with startups, you have to kind of serialize it and stage it. And so, at least for me, I'm not very good at multitasking. And so if I have way too many things going on, then I kind of like freak out. And so I like to focus on one thing at a time. But I also tell them you have to stage things. And so make small steps. And what I like about what you said is, evaluate what's going on, make some steps, and then you're happy. And then, continually evaluate that, like take some time every year or, a certain amount of time and really evaluate where you're at and see, is there anything else that I can tweak here? Because at the end of the day, it's just like a really long journey and it's a marathon. Like you can't, like, I don't think you can just say, okay, I'm gonna take these 3 months and do life design, and then I'm like perfectly 100% happy for the rest of my life. You know, you change as a person and your life changes, and so your priorities change.
I've heard something once, and it seems to apply to a lot of areas, including maybe this work-life balance and evaluating as you go. Imagine you're rolling a tire from, say, Highlands Ranch to downtown Denver. During that activity, you're going to have minor course corrections to get to your goal, and that's kind of what you need to do with this work-life balance is steps along the way, evaluate where you're at, and possibly make minor course corrections.
I like that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'll go and answer Gabe's question. I got attracted to this because I'm kind of in the middle of a transition of my own. Kind of coming out of COVID, I was super unhappy working from home. I was like, I want to be around my team. That team wound up disintegrating as we came out of COVID, and I found myself in a new situation. And so I'm trying to lean in now. I just took a new position doing full remote, and my plan is to figure out how to be more creative in life. And so I'm hoping to actually take the remote stuff literally on the road and just kind of start visiting some new places and checking out new scenes and trying to challenge myself creatively. And it's been interesting because I've usually been like super dedicated, like I'm all about the job. And I'm trying a new thing of like, I still want to do good work, but I want to save some of me for after 5 o'clock and start doing something with it. So I'm kind of at the beginning of it, but thanks for sharing your story, because that's like, maybe this could work.
That's awesome. That's just so great that you're going down that road. And you know, it's been said a lot, but like you only live once, right? And so, you know, do you really want to be spending all your time working or not going towards some passion that you have? So I think that's awesome.
I'm interested in the idea of this thing that's like an accelerator, but not time bound. Is that developing yet?
Yes. So we've been doing a whole bunch of customer interviews. And at this point, we're looking, you know, we're kind of refining our business plan, business model. We're about to go and start fundraising to create a prototype and MVP for it. So we're hopefully going to have something kind of out in the market in Q4, maybe Q1 next year. But we're definitely, you know, it's definitely a go at this point.
You should call it an ion thruster rather than an accelerator.
I like it. We've had a lot of space metaphors so far.